so this is the easy stuff. Let's start with this. The body, when we're talking about fluids and electrolytes, we're always talking about these three kind of compartments that are in the body. You have the blood, right? Intravascular or intravascular, meaning inside the vascular system or inside the veins, right? So that's everything that is inside of the vein. So basically, your blood is made up of more than just red blood cells, right? Your blood is made up of all kinds, a bunch of other stuff, plasma, proteins, white blood cells, and fluid, right? And so you've got all of that kind of in here as your blood. That's one compartment. That's your intercellular. Sorry, no, of course I would screw that up. Intravascular. Okay, you've got your intravascular. Then you've got, which is, where did we, I just want to find it on here. Okay, who cares? Then you've got this other compartment outside of, which is everything outside of that, your extracellular or extravascular. Extra just means outside of, right? And so when we say extracellular fluid, we're talking about everything that is not inside of a cell. So you remember all of this stuff, there's cells inside the blood. There's red blood cells that are in here. There's white blood cells that are in here. I'm going to make them all red so we can see them, right? And then outside here, you've got your epidermal cells. You've got whatever kind of cells are out inside the body hanging around doing. You've got dendritic cells, right? That's how I'm drawing them. So extracellular means anything that is outside of the cell. There's fluid inside all of these things. There's fluid inside of the cells, there's fluid inside the veins, and there's fluid, or not too much, or shouldn't be a whole lot of fluid, outside of that in this extra interstitial space, really. Interstitial meaning in between. So it's in between the blood and the cell. Does that make sense? So you've got these three kind of areas where there is fluid inside of the body. You have the cells, there's fluid inside the cells. We call that intra or inside, right? Cellular. There's fluid inside the blood, which we're calling intravascular. And then everything on the outside of that, we're going to call the interstitial space. Interstitial meaning the in-between. There are kind of these other, so we've talked kind of about these, right? There are these other little areas where there are fluids as well. You've got cerebrospinal fluid in the body. You have some lymph, some fluids that are in between, for example, your heart and the pericardium, right? Your heart is held in this kind of sac. We'll talk more about this in one of the other units. There's a little bit of fluid in here that's kind of keeping the heart from rubbing up against that sac. So that's a little bit of extra fluid that's not included in these three things that we've talked about. But really, when we're talking about fluid and electrolyte balance, we're not worried about any of these. Whoops. Come on. I lost my drawer. Oh, for Pete's sake. So we're not worried about really any of these. We're really worried about these compartments here. So again, if you see the words on the exam, I want to make sure that you understand the words, right? So intracellular, again, inside the cell. That's no problem. Extracellular, outside the cell. So think to yourself, what's outside the cell? Well, it's not just the interstitial space, it's also the intravascular space. Anything that's outside of the cell. So your intracellular, inside the cell, extracellular, anything outside the cell, including the interstitial space and the intravascular space.